Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today I'm going over my week 2 picks. Every single game this week, I go over a score prediction, my guess straight up and against the spread. So we're doing this every week. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Had a really good record last week. We'll go over that a little bit at the end. But stay tuned. We're going to have picks, we do power rankings, we do a review at the end of the week, and then I also have been trying to do some gaming content as well. So let's get right into this one, starting off with tonight, actually, Dolphins Bills. And I'm very tempted in this one to go Bills. Dolphins. I wouldn't recommend betting on it. I guess the weather might be kind of rainy down there. It might be, very humid, which doesn't really change a whole lot, but maybe something that Miami's a little bit more used to. Also, it's a huge benefit, in my opinion, that they have Jordan Poyer. And Jordan Poyer was basically who ran the Bills defense for 7 or 8 years or whatever it's been. So a lot of opportunity for the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel and the rest of the team to kind of capitalize, and they have that kind of inside scoop on, what's going to happen. So betting wise, I wouldn't touch this game, but the Bills have pretty much owned the Dolphins in history, and that's why I have them winning. And the only reason I would consider betting this one if you wanted to is because, as you can see here, I have the Bills winning this one 21-17. But the money, the Bills are plus 2.5 in this game. So I think it wouldn't be like, I don't know if you like alternate spreads and you want to do a really safe bet. I think if you moved it to like Bills plus 3.5, I think you'd be pretty safe if you can win by at least a field goal, considering the Dolphins were only able to beat the Jaguars by 3 points. I feel like the Bills are going to fare better, although the Bills barely beat the Cardinals. So interesting one this week. I think the Bills will win it, which would mean you might want to bet on the plus 2.5. Obviously, this is just, don't take my betting advice because you just don't want to do that. But I'm taking the Bills in this one, 21-17. Next, we have Cowboys Saints. Just in a closer game, Cowboys kind of murder the Browns, and the Saints kind of murdered the Panthers. And so you've got an interesting one. And a lot of the matchups this week, if you watched my power rankings video, it's kind of those teams where a team that's supposed to be good beat a bad team, but it wasn't by much. This is kind of a similar. There was a lot of teams like that last week. These are both two of the teams that had big victories, so it's kind of tough to tell. It's like, well, the Saints beat the Panthers, well, the Cowboys beat the Browns. But I thought the Cowboys looked like a better all-around team, and I'm lower on the Saints in general. So I feel like plus 6.5 is another one where it's like, well, they just won by 37 last week. So how could they lose? Could you take the Saints at plus 7.5? I don't know if that would be a horrible bet, even though I've got the Cowboys winning 28-20, but that's going to be my pick for this week. Lions Buccaneers. This is another one where the Buccaneers dropped 37 on it was 37-20 against the Commanders, and the Lions barely beat a very battered and injured Rams team. So why couldn't the Buccaneers keep it within a touchdown? I guess they could. Very difficult week, in my opinion, for betting. I'm probably going to stay away from spreads. Personally, I'll probably just be sticking to, specific player over and unders for this week, just because I don't like a lot of the matchups. And we don't know much yet, but I got the Lions winning this one 28-17. I'd also like to add that I pick all the scores just from quick analyzation of what's going on and what I've seen so far. Then I go in and add the spread later, and then I move that helmet over according to what I think, or what that would portray. So the helmet's on the side of the money that I would be on. So I would be taking the Lions here at minus 7.5, but I don't feel good about it. I'm probably not going to actually put money on it. Next, we have Jaguars Browns, another one where it's like, well, the Browns got murdered by the Cowboys. Are they really going to be able to put it together? And it's like, well, the Jaguars barely lost to the Dolphins. Was that a fluke? I thought they looked all right, but I'm taking the Jaguars. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the Broncos are going to get at Trevor Lawrence, specifically Myles Garrett, and then Denzel Ward's still over there. I think they're going to make it difficult and try to lock them down. You also saw split carries from Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, so I'm not sure how that's going to fare in the running game. Jerome Ford is not Nick Chubb too, so I feel like this is going to be a lower scoring game, and I've got the Jaguars at 17, Browns at 13. with them taking over and covering. And then you got the Vikings, who get a massive win over the Giants, who might be the worst team in the league. That kind of makes them at only +5.5. We have Nick Bosa saying that he thinks that the Vikings are a significantly better team than the Jets, which I thought was interesting. Are they getting prepared for a loss here? The Vikings going to perform the upset with Sam Darnold, the Sam Darnold revenge game? Who knows? But I'm taking the 49ers are just too good all around in my mind, and they looked really good last week. So I think they'll keep that trend going. I don't really like the DBs in Minnesota. I just really like Brian Flores and what he's able to do with whatever defense he has. But I'm taking the 49ers 28-14 in this one. And then moving on to the Panthers, I have them putting up a lot of points, although the Chargers last week didn't allow a lot of points against the Raiders. It was mainly by forcing turnovers. And I think the Panthers, maybe they'll look at that. They'll say, I don't know if we need to make sure we hang on to the football, but the Raiders were able to drive on the Chargers fairly easily. So I think that's something to keep in mind. The only reason that I think I'm way too high on the scoring in this game is because the Chargers are going to get after them pass rush wise, and I think Bryce Young's going to be feeling that. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game is 14-7 too. So I think my scoring's way too high on this one, but it was what came to mind. I think the Chargers win. I think it's probably by a touchdown. And looking back at it, I would probably change my score prediction to be lower. But sometimes fluke shit happens, and maybe the Panthers will score a lot. But I'm taking the Chargers in this one, 28-21. Covering a 4.5 seemed like a low spread to me, but maybe the books just don't know what the Chargers are yet. Moving on to the Ravens Raiders. I think this is probably one of the easier picks. Money line of the week. I think the Ravens are going to kill the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to want to come back with a vengeance, but I just don't think, after that disappointing loss to the Chargers, I don't think that they have the team to take down the Ravens. You have Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, who I think can help try to slow down this Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson situation, which I do think is interesting. And then you've got Gardner Minshew, who honestly looked pretty good last week, aside from the couple little turnovers that the offense had. They were pretty much in that game. Aside from those turnovers, you just can't make those. So if Zamir White and Gardner Minshew can hang on to the ball and can keep driving down the field like they can, getting the ball to Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, I think the Raiders could stay in this one. And I would probably be kind of nervous to bet at 8.5, honestly, at +8.5 on this one. Although, or I guess even at -8.5 for the Ravens, I'd be a little nervous betting that, just because I don't see why the Raiders couldn't maybe try to come back. It is in Baltimore too, so that's a tough one, but I think the easy part is the Ravens money line, and I'm having them cover the spread. It looks like I put the football or the helmet on the wrong side. Let me fix that real quick. All right, all fixed. Helmet's over. We're taking the Ravens at the -8.5 on that one. Patriots, Seahawks. This is another really interesting one. Seahawks barely beat the Broncos, who kind of looked like a mess at times. And then the Patriots end up getting the upset over the Bengals. And the Bengals kind of look like they're in shambles. The Patriots really just kind of run and ground and pound and make sure that their defense, holds off the Bengals offense well enough to where they didn't have to really score very much and still end up with a win. I just don't believe in the Patriots. And I think it's interesting to take them at +3.5. They're at home, and they just won last week. So if they can beat the Bengals, why can't they beat the Seahawks? I think this is another one you could potentially bet. If you're considering putting together a parlay, might be a good one to throw in there, because the Patriots won last week. So who's to say it couldn't be 17-20 in this game? I feel like that's a very reasonable thing that could happen. So I'm taking the Seahawks, just assuming that the Patriots win last week was a fluke, but I don't feel great about it. But I'm taking the Seahawks 20-12. And then we have the Packers Colts, which this was one of the most interesting lines to me, because I didn't think the Colts looked great other than their couple big plays that they had. And I thought the Packers defense didn't look better. So I honestly think my score could be a little low. My overall score, I think 4 is probably a fair spread, and I would still take the Packers winning regardless. But it does seem odd that the Colts are the ones favored in this in Green Bay. I didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't think that that's a right move by the books. And if you were going to bet something, this would probably be the one that I would recommend. But don't take any of my betting advice. But it just seems odd to me that the Packers aren't favored in this one. Their offenses looked good, and their defense definitely needs help. But the Colts offense was really just kind of some big, deep passes and big plays that happened. It wasn't really consistently being able to drive down the field nicely. And yeah, it was a closer game against the Texans, but the Packers made a very close game against the Eagles. So maybe the books think that the Eagles, aren't as good as other people think, and they think the Texans are really good. So the Colts end up being favored at home. It just seemed odd to me, but I'm taking the Packers 21, Colts 17. Again, I think the score could be higher. I think even like a 31, 31-27 type deal, 28-24 is probably reasonable. Something like that, I think, is what we're going to have, though. Next, we have Titans-Jets. I don't see any reason that the Jets would be able to beat the Titans. That's why in the thumbnail I have them as the loser. This is a game where I think, again, with the betting, it's -3.5 for the Jets, and that seems low. I know they just kind of got the shit beat out of them by the 49ers, but it's the 49ers and Titans held the Bears under 150 total yards of offense and still found a way to lose. So I think that just asks you for the Titans to lose this game too. I think Tony Pollard will probably have a good game, as Jordan Mason was able to run the ball all over the Jets. I think the Titans will be able to put up some points. I think they'll get into field goal range. Here we're probably getting a touchdown and 2 field goals. But I think the Jets are going to improve in their run defense this week. I don't think Bob Saleh wants to hear about that again. And I think Aaron Rodgers is actually going to be able to drive down the field and score. Breece Hall is going to hold on to the ball. Allen Lazard might not have these bad drops, or Rodgers will start targeting Garrett Wilson more. But I'm taking the Jets 21, Titans 13. Moving on to the Commanders 24-10. Just the Giants don't show any upside, any hope of any sort. So I just easily picked the Commanders to win. I thought their offense was operating well. Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau weren't really able to get any pressure last week. I think they're going to be able to this week, but Jaden Daniels can move. So I think that's going to be a tough one for him, and I think this will be a big win. I think the spread's a little too close. -1.5 for the Commanders seems too easy, but maybe the Giants have a get-right game, and maybe they have the Commanders' numbers. We'll have to see. I guess you have to factor in that is a very new team with Jaden Daniels, obviously being in his rookie year, Cliff Kingsbury, brand new OC, Dan Quinn's a new coach, and he brought over a lot of players from the Cowboys, and the defense for the most part is a lot of new players. So maybe they're assuming it's going to be closer with everybody trying to put it together over there, but I think the Commanders are winning this one 24-10. Moving on to the Cardinals-Rams, it seemed very odd to me that the Cardinals are favored in this one. This is another one that I would personally might bet because just plus 1.5. Matt Stafford looked really good. He can still just throw it to Cooper Kupp every time. You're not going to be able to guard him. Kyler Murray didn't really get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved, so there'd be some upside there. And I think the biggest problem is going to be the Rams' offensive line not being healthy, but I don't think the Cardinals have this game-breaking defensive lineman that could ruin the game for him either. So I have the Rams winning, but Cardinals showed last week that they could put up points against the Bills. So I think they'll both put up points, and it'll be a bit of a barn burner, but I think -1.5 for the Cardinals seemed a little too close for me. So I'm taking the Rams going into Arizona and taking down the Cardinals 24-20. Next, we have one of the bigger games of the week's Chiefs-Bengals. Bengals typically haven't done very well early on in the year, and I think that trend will continue, and the Chiefs will just win. I don't really have much more explanation about this one. I think you've seen, Patrick Mahomes do what Patrick Mahomes can do when he's targeting Rashee Rice and getting those certain plays to Xavier Worthy. Didn't even really use Travis Kelce last week and were able to get the win over the Ravens. So there's nothing that would suggest to me that the Bengals would be able to win this game unless they pull some crazy shit out of their ass and put something together that the Chiefs aren't expecting. So I'm taking the Chiefs 21-13 in this one. Broncos-Steelers, I think I could even be high on the score predictions for this week. I think it could be very low scoring. Last week, Justin Fields really just did the most little possible that he needed to do, trying to avoid fumble the ball and throw the ball to the other team, which he did. There was no turnovers. The Steelers drove down the field a little bit and had a couple good plays to George Pickens. I think the scary part about this game, especially getting the Broncos at home plus 2.5, is Pat Surtain is basically going to lock down George Pickens, and that was pretty much Justin Fields' only target last week. So if they're smart and they put Pat Surtain on George Pickens, he's not really going to have much of anything to do, and it's going to result in a lot more Justin Fields running, and the Broncos might be able to contain the running of Najee, Jaylen Warren, Justin Fields, and it could result in, if the Broncos put up enough points and the Broncos defense figures out Steelers offense, they could win this game. In that case, I'm just going to I'm taking the Steelers anyway, just because I think the Steelers are a little bit more well put together. Obviously, the offense has some question marks with, Justin Fields being a new quarterback in Arthur Smith's system, but I'm taking the Steelers in this one, 20-14. Then we have one of the last games of the week, the Texans-Bears. I think the Texans showed that they can still play good, smart, balanced football last week. I think they're going to do it again in Houston on prime time. The Bears did not really produce much of any offense. I think they might get an offensive touchdown this week. That'd be cool to see, or even just a normal drive down the field. But I think their defense is going to try to keep them in this game. I think the Texans are just going to have their number, and I don't think it's going to be able to work out. Although the Bears did murder the Texans in that Hall of Fame game, I guess that doesn't really count for much of anything because nobody played. But yeah, I think the Texans will get this win. -6.5 is probably a perfect line for me because I think the Texans probably win by a touchdown, or, it could be like, oh, it's only 6. I think it's a pretty perfect line in my opinion. I think we're going to be right around that touchdown area. I've got them at 24-13, but I'd see it to be very easy for it to be 24-17 again, like the score of the Bears game last week or something along those lines. But I'm taking the Texans. I think they're a great football team, and the Bears are going to take some time, so they're going to get their first loss in this one. Next, I have the Eagles-Falcons. This one I was interested too. I predicted 24-17, and I looked at the line. It's pretty much perfect with the line, and I think I'm tempted to not, it almost seems like the Falcons scoring 17 might be too much, especially only being able to put up 10 against the Steelers. I don't think the Eagles defense is as good as the Steelers. That's why I think they'll probably get a little bit more. But I think this is going to be a surprisingly close game, especially because at some point this season, I think the Falcons are going to figure it out and figure out how to put it together. But there has been questions of if Kirk Cousins is really still dealing with that Achilles, and if he's not able to throw with the same power that he has because he doesn't have that same drive. And if that's an issue, it's going to be difficult for the Falcons to win games. But I think regardless, Bijan Robinson is going to be able to run or catch the ball out of the backfield or whatever all over this Eagles team. So I think they're going to put up points, but I think it'll still result in an Eagles win at 24-17, rounding out the week and going to my record. So like I said, every week, I put what my record is, and I do the straight up record, which is the big one in the middle. I also go week by week with that one. I put my against the spread record, which wasn't great at 7-9, was very close. There was like 2 or 3 games last week that I picked. I was like a point or 2 off of being correct, but the odds makers just put some good spreads in. And then I always put the better rushing team record, which it's been consistently a great way to pick games. If you think one team is going to be able to run the ball and the other team better, it's typically paid off. So far, so good at 10-6, not great. I actually was able to pick straight up better than the better rushing team. But if you watched last season, the better rushing team record trumped everything big time. Let me know what you think down below. This has been good so far. 12-4 is the best start that I've had. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.